do it myself. And but I also like to see other people produce a book because they have ideas and they may have some editorial suggestions and do artwork for a cover and that sort of thing. And I like seeing the variety that results from that.
So when you said small presses never break even,
well, mine doesn't.
So do you think it's possible for experimental writers to make a living doing that anymore? No.
Mm-mm.
You think it's completely...
I don't think it ever was.
But what about guys like Burroughs?
Well, he never made much money off his books. He made more money selling paintings than he did from his books. He had kind of a hand-to-mouth existence for most of his life.
Really? But even in his later years, wasn't he financially okay?
Well, yeah, that was largely due to the services of Grauerholtz, who got him gigs, performance things, and got, Grauerholtz was a music promoter before he started working with Burroughs, so he knew how to do that stuff, and he used his music business connections to get him performance gigs and that sort of thing, and he made some money doing that. The books themselves...
Really? Because, I mean, nowadays his books sell well, right? Or at least Naked Lunch, right?
Yeah, they're still in the bookstores. I mean, you go to a place like Borders, for God's sake, and they're a little bunch of Burroughs books.
Huh.
And so, it sells. You're not going to get rich doing that, though.
You used to do a lot of audio stuff, right?
Still do.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So what's that?
Back in the 80s, it was did cassette tape recordings of readings or live performances. Lately, I've been doing a lot of performance with musicians. Some of that has been released on CDs. And I still do readings and sound art things that show up here and there. And in addition, I'm a member of this sound poetry performance group called the B Blank Consort. And we've performed all over the U.S. There's about 4 or 5 core members. And whenever we go someplace, like New York or Minneapolis, we bring in a couple of people we know locally who are involved in experimental writing to perform with us. So that's a going operation. We have one CD out and another one we're working on. And we're doing a performance in Ottawa in early October. So,
what does a performance entail? What kind of...
Well, we take texts that we've written or written collaboratively and score them for many voices. One device is to do a text as a canon. So say it has 10 lines, and we have 5 people. We'll start, the first person starts at the beginning, and when he gets to the end of the first line, the second person will start at the first line and read all the way through it, and so on. So it's like a row your boat. We do that kind of thing. We do things that are scored a little bit differently, where different parts are said by different people at different times, sometimes overlapping, sometimes not. We have things where we do different texts performed simultaneously. There's one that Al Ackerman did where he cut up a poem of mine and called it Piece for 6 Performers and a Dog. And so we have 6 people reading 6 different parts of a text at the same time, and one person barking like a dog.
Wow.
And that's always a crowd pleaser. And so on and so forth. We have a lot of different shticks we do.
Is it all vocal, or is there some?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
It's all vocal.
Okay.
We're in Ottawa. We're going to try to do something where we distribute noisemakers to the audience and get them involved.
What kind of venue would you perform that in?
It's mostly in art spaces, art galleries. We've done it in a library. We performed once at the Center for Book Arts, or whatever it's called, in New York. The Center for Book Arts in Minneapolis, we performed there. But it's mostly art spaces.
When you mention musicians, what kind of musicians do you like to work with?
Well, I've done a number of things with Jack Wright, who's a saxophonist, and occasionally he brings in another musician that he works with, and we perform together. Lately, I've done work with one of my sons, who's a very interesting percussionist. Doesn't play the drums anymore exactly. He makes noises with drum heads and needles on the floor and all kinds of other devices that he puts together out of trash and stuff.
Wow.
And he's very good. I've done things with him and other people. Did a disc recently with a Chilean poet, Martin Gubens, where I read some poems, some in English and some in Spanish, and then he did modified versions of them. Some of them, the English things, he translated into Spanish and then performed them with electronic distortion and whatnot, and it goes back and forth between the two of us across the recording. That came out quite well, I thought.
Is your son a professional musician?
Well, that's what he does mostly, but he doesn't make any money at what he does. I mean, he's like I am. He's not doing music that has any commercial value.
Do you perform around here, around Columbus?
Not very often, no. Last time I did, I think, was at Skylab downtown, which is a performance space on Gay Street. My other son lives there and kind of promotes, or is sort of the organizer of it, and I performed there. But generally, Columbus isn't interested in what I do.
So you haven't taught in years since you've been curating the library? Do you still teach classes? Or?
Occasionally I'll teach a single class about one thing or another, poetry, or maybe it's a class having to do with parts of the collection at the library, that sort of thing. But I don't teach, it's been a while since I taught a whole regular course.
So what's the criteria for acceptance into the Avant writing library? What do you look for?
It's hard to say. It has to strike me as something important and well done. It doesn't have to be, and most of it isn't, well known in the literary world. But it has to strike me as something that really adds something to the field and is unique in some way.
How do you define? I mean, do you ever read something that you think is you like it, but you think it's too mainstream for your?
Sure. Oh, yeah, all the time.
So I guess how do you differentiate?